Hello and welcome to Tech Talks. Today I'm joined by Aryen Singhal. First, to start off, Aryen, who are you in regards to CSES?
Hi, I'm the president of CSES Open Source.
So I guess that brings up the next question of what is CSES Open Source?
Okay. Um, well, let me just start off by saying what open source is. First of all, open source is quite simply like a model of building software and distributing software where the source code is made publicly, and it's freely available for anyone to use, to study, or to modify. At CSES Open Source, we try to bring this model of building software to the campus community and towards specifically helping UCSD students, UCSD labs, departments in building software that that would be useful to students around the world using this model of open source.
In the past, what are some kind of examples of projects that open source has worked on?
Like I mentioned, the mission of open source is to work on projects that benefit the campus community. Towards that, we have built like four projects so far. One is Triton Script. Now, Triton Script is a note sharing app with a focus on accessibility in mind. This is being built in partnership with the Office for Students with Disabilities at UCSD. Very simply, it's a place for students of all backgrounds to taking any UCSD class to upload their notes, to gain access to an ever-growing repository of notes uploaded by their peers, their classmates. And this is all synced with your WebReg account, with your UCSD account. So you can be rest assured that the notes being uploaded by others are verified. They are relevant specifically to UCSD courses. And we also have a bunch of features in mind, like accessible features in mind. So, for instance, all the graphs, all the images that are uploaded to this platform have automatically generated alt text captioning. This platform also integrates with the OSD office's existing program of volunteer note takers for students who may be physically challenged or incapable of taking notes on a regular basis or coming to class. And this platform sort of aims to make that process more efficient for students who do need these services. Um, in essence, it serves as an alternate for a bunch of either paid or inaccurate services out there for anyone trying to look up study material or class notes. That's Triton Script. Moving on to a second project, which is Triton Spend. Triton Spend is a finance management app, again, with UCSD in mind. So it integrates with the dining halls, the dining dollars, and Triton Cash system. This is being built in partnership with the Basic Needs Center. So a lot of our features focus on expenses that students would face that we felt were not currently being covered effectively by existing budget tracking apps out there on the Play Store, which, expect you to have some sort of stable income, rent, etc., which doesn't really work with the student model, with how students spend their money on things. The app allows you to track your budget, set goals. It also has a few nice gamification elements, such as if, let's say, you put in your favorite sort of drink on campus as Tapix Boba, you can choose to measure how much money you save in terms of the number of bobas saved as opposed to the number of dollars saved. Just sort of making budgeting and like fiscal prudence more fun for college students. The third project is Opportune, which aims to be an all-in-one platform for internship tracking, interview prep, as well as seeking advice from alumni. Like the most basic feature, internship tracking, whatever internship you apply to, you can just input it in our Opportune portal. It keeps track of all your internships in one place across job portals. It sends you reminders for follow-ups. It also reminds you to sort of check your emails. It keep track of when interviews are scheduled, like just helping you throughout the entire internship and job application process. The second feature is our company specific repository of interview questions as well as lead code questions. This is all community curated and anyone can contribute to this, including alumni, which sort of leads me into the next and arguably most important part of this portal, which is one place for you to connect with alumni, to connect with professors who may be experts in your field and who may be able to give you advice, give you tips and tricks on how to target specific internships, specific companies. One thing after talking to students I felt is that UCSD has a really large alumni network, but it's very fragmented over like multiple sort of alumni portals. Each department has its own way of doing things. It's often not very intuitive or easy to connect with alumni. So with this opportune portal, we aim to streamline the entire process, help current students get advice from former students, get the help they need, get the help from people who have already gone through this process. That's opportune. Our last project is Low Price Center. I mean, a bunch of people would have faced this issue either at the end of second year, moving off campus, having to buy your own furniture, you know, buying fridges, microwaves, or honestly at the end of college having to also sell that furniture. Like, you see a bunch of posts in like the CSE Discord or the EC35 Discord, or you basically have to go up on Facebook Marketplace and try to scour for a good deal, which, now that's again not campus specific. It's sort of the lowest region you can set is all of San Diego. So again, it works, but it's not the best tool serving students in the sort of second-hand e-commerce department. And that's where Low Price Center comes in, which aims to be an e-commerce marketplace specifically for UCSD students and UCSD clubs. One feature, like I mentioned, is being able to post stuff that you no longer need for other UCSD students to buy, being able to purchase stuff from other UCSD students. Everything, like all the meeting spots, all the chat, everything is handled through UCSD email, and everything is done on campus. So it's a lot safer for students who might either not have access to a vehicle to go all the way downtown or might be hesitant because of safety issues. Where this is also a platform for student orgs to sell their merch, promote their merchandise, potentially even for UCSD to in the future sell their merch on this platform. Again, streamlining all sorts of buying and selling that needs to take place on campus in one place.
So other than, those projects, are there any kind of upcoming or future projects that people might be looking forward to, that open source might be working on in this next year?
It's interesting you asked that because open source is actually on a bit of a transition period right now. Because, I mean, an argument that is raised, and you would be trying to raise that argument, is a bunch of these projects can be done like by these are just like these just seem like regular web dev projects, right? There's a bunch of other orgs on campus also doing sort of similar things. There's nothing really distinct making this open source. So going forward, what we sort of want to focus more on is building open source tooling, building sort of community collaborative projects, which departments, clubs, students around UCSD can collectively contribute to. They can modify it, they can build it as per their needs. And one of our first pilot projects following this model is Taco. Taco is a simple boilerplate project initializer. It lets you choose from like a huge combination of front end programming language, backend language, what sort of API system you want to use, what database connections you want to use. And once you set your configs, it basically creates an entire project repository for you with that tech stack in mind, with all the connections working, with the git ignore setup, with all the environment, with all the credentials set up, everything. The point of this is to reduce setup time, reduce the time spent in writing boilerplate code, and get project teams working on features immediately. So we have about 6 CSE orgs on campus, which all with their own project teams, all which either do some sort of mobile dev or web dev work. And this would be very useful for all the project teams because now instead of spending time just sort of setting up the repository, teaching devs how random syntax works, we can get right into like feature development. This streamlines things a lot, and it's also very community focused and expandable because each org, every student, every department can just add their own combination of languages or frameworks to this if it doesn't already exist, and just have this ever growing large project that adapts to everyone's needs.
Yeah, that sounds great because as you mentioned in the beginning, part of the mission for open source is to like support UCSD, support the campus, support the students here. So building something that supports other organizations is also part of that.
Absolutely.
One other question I have is that, if I'm someone who's looking at all these projects and I feel like it's, out of reach, maybe I'm a first year student.
Mhm.
Is there something that open source provides that will get me to the point that I can work on these types of projects?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, first of all, I would like to mention that just by its nature, CSES Open Source is like probably the most beginner friendly project team you can get into. We have about, all our projects have about 10 members working on it. We try to have a mix of experienced and beginner developers. So, you know, you get the opportunity to grow and learn from other programmers. But yes, I do see the concern. Most people are hesitant to directly apply to a project because either they're freshmen, they may have limited coding experience, or they're just not as confident in their abilities. So, first of all, I would say apply anyways. There's no harm in applying. But also, if you're not confident in joining the project teams, or you happen to not get in, we're piloting a new program from this year. It's called the Open Source Cohorts. This will be a quarterly workshop series, intensive 10 weeks of learning, coding, project making, where we take you from zero coding experience to basically being ready to contribute to any of our open source projects. These workshops are going to happen every quarter. They're open to anyone to join, any background. You don't have to be a CS major. So yeah, come learn. There's a lot of opportunities for learning out there.
Now, kind of pivoting to a little more about you specifically, because we've talked a bit about open source. I think over this last summer, you did have an internship. Is that correct? Did you have a
That's
tech
correct.
internship this summer?
Yeah.
Okay. So one question I like to ask people after they've had an internship is, what is one personal strategy or tip that you'd give to someone who is looking to get an internship next summer?
Well, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, mass apply. Unfortunately, the sort of competitive time we live in with automatic resume screening, automatic resume generation, there's no alternative to mass applying. That being said, a few things which do increase your chances is one, it's better to apply to like 2 internships every day as opposed to 20 at the end of the week. Primarily because in these internships where thousands of people are applying, timing is everything. If you Most of these internships follow like a first come first serve format. So if you apply 2 hours after the internship is posted, you already have an edge against like 99% of other candidates. As opposed to if you apply to the same internship at the end of the week, you've already lost out on like sort of you're already going to be reviewed 5 days after the thousands of applicants who've applied before you. So definitely consistency is better than a bunch of applications in one go. Another thing which does increase your chances is trying to find connections. Um, in fact, the previous internship I got was also because of a referral I got from someone in CSES actually, who had a friend who had another friend who had another friend working in the company, and then from there I was able to get a referral. And that, I mean, I don't know how much that helped, but it probably did fast track my application through at least the initial stages. Do not be afraid. LinkedIn has this feature where it tells you alumni who have worked in a certain company. It tells you sort of second, third level connections who have worked in a certain company. Do not be afraid to reach out to them. Just shoot them a message. In my experience, most people, they've been in the same boat. They understand where you're coming from, and they are always willing to help. After that, after you do reach out to people, don't just treat it as I asked them for a referral and that's it. I feel like it's really important to, if someone, is expressive, if someone is accepting, you should definitely try to cultivate that connection further. Give them updates on what you're doing, like projects, or maybe when you do get an internship, talk to them about the internship, because these connections, these networks matter more than your interview, more than your resume. What other people who have worked with you say about you. I feel like that's like the most important differentiating factor.
To add on to that, in tech, there's a lot of focus on the kind of tech bubble of industries. Is there any industries off the top of your head that kind of need tech people, but usually don't come to mind that might be a good place for people to apply?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, tech is such a widespread field. Like, in fact, one of my friends worked as an ML engineer in San Diego Gas and Electric. Now, you wouldn't, if you were applying for an ML role, SDG isn't the first thing that would come to your mind. But as it turns out, they tend to work with like the local city council and do a lot of wildfire research in the San Diego County area, and they need machine learning models to do that. So definitely don't like try to restrict yourself to the FANG companies. There's tech in basically every single field right now. Like, I mean, healthcare, finance are obviously the big ones, but even like smaller industries, like for example, the San Diego City Council, they need a machine learning engineer.
Now, because we were mainly talking about open source,
Mhm.
one thing I remember, this might have been like even kind of pre-pandemic, but there was all this kind of advice online of like, oh, if you want to get into tech, you should be contributing to open source. Like contributing to open source is kind of a thing that should be in your resume. Do you think that that's still true today?
Absolutely. Contributing to open source, think of it this way, right? Essentially, it's the same as, you know, um, doing lead code or building a project, except it's a way for them to be able to gauge your technical abilities. Except when you're contributing to open source, it's not just a personal project that you have complete control over. When you contribute to these open source repositories, it's usually other people reviewing your PR. It's like sort of industry professionals who are managing those repositories, and your code immediately goes into production. It has a lot of implications, especially for the larger open source repositories. So when recruiters see open source contributions, not only does it give them, like, tell them about your technical abilities, that you're able to contribute to these, but it also sort of, in a way, it gives them an approval from external parties, from external industry, from established companies, that they thought your code was good enough to be merged into their project, to be put out into production where millions of users are going to use it. And it's a really sort of cheap and easy way to get that brand, to get that credibility without directly having to join a company or directly having to launch a product and have million users use it. It's a Open source just happens to be a very easy way to both demonstrate your technical ability as well as like your ability to write quality code that millions of users are using. And yes, that's why I think it's important.
Mhm. Of course. If you want to start contributing to open source, like
Mhm.
obviously that is kind of scary, right? Because
Yeah.
you're going to be pushing code that has actual implications. So do you have any tips for what people should do first?
Um, Join the open source cohorts. we'll we take you right from the beginning to like the guidelines for what open source repositories look for, what are the things you should keep in mind when contributing to open source repositories. We also, at the end of the workshop, in fact, you also have an opportunity to contribute to an actual open source repository with one of our partners. Like, we have Cisco, we have Linux. So think about it. You have the opportunity to contribute directly to the Linux kernel under a guided 10-week workshop under the mentorship of students who have already done it before. So that's obviously the easiest place to start. Get rid of your fears there. But I mean, obviously, if you don't have the time commitment for a workshop, the open source community is just so helpful. There's a bunch of resources out there. The UC OSPO network has a bunch of tutorials on how to start contributing. Basically, every major open source organization out there. Git, for instance, if you just search for contributing to open source, GitLab, they have a bunch of documentation on and tutorials and workshops on how to start contributing to open source. They also provide you with a curated list of issues that are like, small bite-sized issues that aren't very scary. You can dip your toes in the water, get comfortable with the entire open source community before moving on to larger projects. So yeah, just look out there. There's a bunch of resources.
Kind of going back a bit, when we were talking about landing an internship.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to give you kind of an option here, and you
Okay.
can. But when you're kind of making your resume or you're updating your LinkedIn profile,
Hmm.
um, are you more in the camp of like, I want to have like basically everything I've done? Like, I'm just going to throw in every single thing I've done, whether it's related to tech or not? Or do you try to like focus and tailor like very specific highlights of your work?
It's It's I feel like there's only one right answer to that, and that's tailoring your resume to the specific highlights of your work. Now, most people take it a step further and, in fact, make a separate resume for every single job they apply to, depending on the job description and the keywords in the job description, depending on the amount of time you have or the amount of experiences you have that may or may not be practical for you. But I mean, at the very least, if let's say you're applying to a SWE role, your experiences, your resume should be purely SWE focused. The fact that you know horse riding or you're a national champ at swimming does nothing to add to your SWE application. It only takes away, and I mean, think about it, right? Every recruiter has 2 or 3 seconds, like a minute to go through your resume. They are just going to quickly scan all the bullet points. So adding unnecessary stuff that does not really relate to the job only dilutes your other experiences. It takes away from space that could be used for, highlighting other experiences in more detail. Or even if, let's say, you do manage to hypothetically fit every single thing you've done on one page, that's not that's not really a good idea, because like I said before, it dilutes the impact of your other experiences. The more time they spend reading about your interests or hobbies, the less time they spend reading about your actual technical skills and technical experience. So definitely tailor your resume. Okay, so just coming back to the projects I spoke about. So I mentioned that we're doing 4 projects, all with UCST departments, all focused on the campus community. So how do you actually get started to contributing to those projects and using those projects yourself? In fall quarter, we're going to do a closed beta where we'll be sending out invites to specific people. If you want to be on that closed beta, definitely look out for our mailing list. For we will be sending out more instructions on that. In winter quarter, we'll be doing an open beta with all UCST students. Again, that's a great opportunity for you to sort of hop on, give us feedback on what you would like to see included in the app, potentially even directly contribute to the app itself. And we're targeting a full launch by spring 2027. And that's when the app should be ready to use for everyone. And hopefully it creates the impact that we hope to create.
Thank you for coming for this interview.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on this platform. And yeah, I can't wait to hear what all the podcasts that come next.